Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Ohio Huntsman Podcast. And today we talk about hunting etiquette. So in hunting, there's these sort of unwritten rules and ways that we could act or ways that we maybe think others should act in order to keep it friendly, keep it fair, I guess, if you will. And so we kind of run through our thoughts on some of these scenarios. You know, what happens if you walk up on a guy in the woods, or, if there's already somebody in the parking lot when you pull up to a piece of public, what do you do? Do you go in anyway? That kind of thing. We kind of like to play around with these scenarios, and hopefully it gets you guys thinking about some of this stuff and how we can all sort of, get along in the woods. Generally, our experience has been good with these kind of things. Everybody's out there trying to enjoy the resource, but thought it would make for an interesting conversation. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. And like I said, hopefully you haven't had too many bad experiences with this. If you have, maybe shoot us a message. We'd be interested to hear that kind of stuff. Or if you've had good experiences, let us know. Either way, send us a message on either Facebook, we're Ohio Huntsman on Facebook, or Instagram, where we're Ohio Huntsman _podcast, or shoot us an email. You can, there's a contact us section on our website, ohiohuntsman.com. Lots of ways to get in touch with us. So let us know how things have gone for you in the hunting etiquette space, and if you'd like to hear us do more of these. Jeff, we talked about, maybe doing a fishing etiquette episode. How close can you fish to somebody else? That kind of stuff, So let us know what you think if you like this kind of content. And you'll hear me in this one. I bought myself a new grunt call. So you get to hear me tooting on my new grunt call. And we sort of switched the orders. We recorded this one before the episode we released last week. So you'll hear us talk about planning to use my new grunt call when we go down for our bow weekend, which was beginning of November. So this one's a little out of order, but we thought last week's episode was maybe more relevant at the time. So I can say at this point that I've used that grunt call and been very happy with it. Used it in the woods, been happy with it, and I really like the fact that it's got a slider on the side that allows you to adjust from a fawn bleat to a buck grunt on the fly. It's just a slider. You slide up and down with your thumb. And another really nice feature is that slider sort of changes the position of the reed. That's how it changes the tone. And in doing so, it keeps that, if the reed ever freezes up, which happens a lot, you blow in it once, you get that moist breath in there, and then it either won't blow or sounds weird because the reed froze. Sliding that slider up and down unlocks that reed, and it works great. So if you're interested in checking that call out, it's like I said, it's my new grunt call. I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you're looking for a new grunt tube. Maybe check it out. And then before we get into the episode, one last thing. I want to talk about our sponsor, Mastin's Deer Scents. So Mastin's is a premium scent company. They collect their scent on stainless steel, which, stainless is ultra clean, so you're getting good, pure scent. A lot of other companies will collect on concrete, so you can get off scents and things in there. And they've got unique scents, right? They've got a cover scent they call Smell Like a Deer, which Jacob was actually using when he shot his buck. And if you haven't seen the photos of that, check out our social media. And you can see the photos of that buck. It's a really nice buck. He was using that Smell Like a Deer scent, so we can attest that has helped him harvest his 2019 buck. And they've got great prices. That's the one thing I really like about them is they're not trying to gouge anybody on prices. The prices are super fair, and the product works. So if you're looking for scent, you want to try and use scent, as we're getting ready for gun season, whatever you're looking for, check them out. There'll be a link in the show notes. You can just go to their website, order right on their website, and have it shipped to your house. And with that, let's get into this week's episode. Welcome to the Ohio Huntsman Podcast, where three brothers, Jason, Jacob, and Jeff, discuss all things hunting in Ohio. Our goal is to be your source for accurate and reliable hunting news and conservation issues in the great state of Ohio, as well as some fun and interesting conversations along the way. This is the Ohio Huntsman Podcast.
Are you listening?
So on today's show, we're going to talk about a few things, but the main topic is hunting etiquette. So as we all know, there's sort of these unwritten rules or, unwritten rules, etiquette, right? Things that you should and shouldn't do. None of this is against the law, but we're all out there trying to use the resources, and there's things that you run into, scenarios that you run into, like, how should I handle this, right? I'm going out to hunt, and it's public ground, or maybe it's a big piece of private that a lot of different people have access to, and you run across somebody else in the woods. What do you do? Those kind of like etiquette things, just being, in the woods diplomacy, right? Like, how do you treat these scenarios and not make enemies, I guess? But before we get into that, you may have seen there is this, I don't know, should I call it a movement or an initiative, maybe?
Initiative.
Initiative. Yeah, you may have seen things on the internet referring to team trees or hashtag team trees. And so I'm going to kind of hand this off to Jeff. He's kind of the expert at the moment on this between the three of us. So we wanted to just, I guess, briefly touch on team trees and what it is. So Jeff, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so this Team Trees initiative started when a YouTuber called Mr. Beast, he reached 20 million subscribers on his YouTube, and people were kind of joking, like, oh, you should plant 20 million trees one for each one of your subscribers. And, they kind of just kept pestering about the idea. So then he got the idea, like, well, let's see if we can make this happen. So then he reached out to Mark Rober, which I'm a lot more familiar with his stuff. He's an engineer. He was a NASA engineer. He worked on the Mars rover, and now he's a YouTuber that makes practical engineering stuff. He made a trap for porch pirates that had a tracking device in it and would throw glitter. Actually, I think it was micro glitter when they opened up the package. And
what's his YouTube channel? Is it just his name, or?
I wish I knew.
I think there is a channel called Practical Engineering.
Yeah.
Let's back up a minute. What is a porch pirate?
A porch pirate is someone that steals your package off your porch, like your Amazon package.
Never heard of that. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's
making sense now. I understand what you're talking about.
Yes.
Now you've been introduced to a whole segment of YouTube where people have recorded people stealing packages off their porch. There's even a video out there where I think it's a woman. She runs up and takes a package, and as she's kind of running back to the car, she trips and breaks her ankle in this person's front yard. So it's like a karma video. I'm sure it's got millions of views, but yeah, you'll have to check it out.
And I'm betting she probably tried to sue those people too.
Oh, I don't know about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, porch pirates. He made a tracking device for porch pirates, but you are more familiar with him in regards to YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where we left off, I guess.
Yeah, and he makes all these engineering things and researches topics. So Mr. Beast reached out to Mark Rover about how could we possibly do this? And the two of them kind of researched the idea and kind of said the only way to make this practical is to reach out to a larger organization and basically try to turn donations into planted trees. So they reached out to the Arbor Day Foundation, who agreed to plant one tree for every dollar donated. And they also enlisted the help of just about every major YouTuber out there.
Yeah, so that's what I've seen of it. I didn't know the origin story, but there's a couple different YouTube channels that I follow that have done videos on it recently. Just the one I watched was Destin from Smarter Every Day. He was talking about just like the logistics of not only planting. It's 20 million trees. Is
20 million? Yeah,
20 million trees. Yeah. So not only planting 20 million trees, but like just figuring out the logistics of what trees grow where, and he lives I think Georgia or Alabama, but anywho, he met with some professors down there and they talked about the longleaf pine and some of its special characteristics and how it really thrives in it kind of needs fire to clear that understory and grow. But anyway, you could watch the video. But that's sort of my knowledge on it is from that standpoint, right? The like you said, the YouTubers have been tagged in or brought into this to say, hey, let's try to make this thing a reality. Hashtag Team Trees. Go make a donation, and for every dollar donated, they're going to plant a tree.
Right. And the website to donate to is teamtrees.org. And this is if they succeed in getting these 20 million, they want to plant 20 million trees. They want to get the donations together to plant 20 million trees by 2020. So by the new year.
Oh, okay.
And if this succeeds, it'll be like one of the largest private like environmental initiatives ever done.
So do you know anything about the details of where they're going to plant these? Like, are they going to plant these all across the country, or
my question
is
who's planting them? You said Arbor Day, but who? Like, somebody has to physically plant the trees.
Well, I think Arbor Day already has that framework because if you've ever gotten the Arbor Day mailings, right, they say, oh, $10 and we'll send you 10 trees and you're a member of Arbor Day.
But then you plant
them, or you can waive the trees and they'll plant trees in, for your $10 donation or something like that, right? Isn't there something like that?
That might be right. There might be an option to have 10 trees planted somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, the Arbor Day, they already have the framework to plant trees efficiently. And they're going to plant these trees in areas that they have deemed being in like critical need of reforestation all across the world.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah, it's not just the U.S. It's, not just North America, but it's the whole world. There are locations within the U.S., but it's the whole world.
So they're obviously then it's going to be different tree species if it's correct. All across the world.
Yeah, and that's another reason that they kind of tagged in the Arbor Day Foundation, was that they had the knowledge to know what trees to plant where, and also just had the ability to find places to plant trees. 20 million trees is a lot of trees to plant, so just even finding the ground to plant 20 million trees is, sort of an undertaking in itself.
Yeah.
So, my devil's advocate, how are they following up on this and confirming that Arbor Day is using these donations to plant trees? Because the Arbor Day Foundation is also extremely, extremely left and anti-gun. And so how do we know our money's not going against us?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, other than it's
illegal. Obviously, I'm assuming it would be illegal, but
yeah,
is
Arbor Day a nonprofit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just know that they definitely lean. As hunters, we kind of flirt the line because we like our guns, but we also like our natural places.
Right, natural resources,
right.
And we care about the environment, clean
right.
air, clean water.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and those don't align with a party left or right. They a little bit of both. So that's where some of the organizations are on one side and the other. I mean, they're going to do a lot of good things for wildlife by planting trees, but we need to make sure that the money is planting trees and not funding politics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume that there's some sort of checks and balance system here. I mean, $1 per tree doesn't. I'm assuming that someone's going to be checking up on it, and $1 per tree doesn't leave a lot of leftover room when you're talking about actually getting trees to plant and paying or organizing volunteers to plant them.
Right. No, assuming they're planting trees, I don't think they're making money off of it by any means. I'm just thinking $20 million is a lot of money if they're not planting trees and using it against gun rights or against
we'll plant 10 million trees, call it good
right.
enough, and keep the other $10 million.
Right.
That's a joke. I obviously have no clue. I do think there are, that's why I asked if they're a nonprofit, because nonprofits get audited, and I do think there's some, there needs to be an audit trail that can be followed that, hey, you guys did this donation campaign and you said you were going to plant a tree for every $1 donated. So show us where you donate, you planted a tree for every $1 that was donated. But it would probably be worth reading the fine print. I'm sure there's some fine print somewhere in this, and maybe digging a little deeper. But assuming it's all on the up and up, right? And,
right.
and you're going to give $1 and it's going to plant a tree. It could be, it sounds like a really cool, what's the word? Like citizen science, like,
public action.
You were alluding to it there, Jeff, with like, this will be the biggest, private, whatever.
Publicly funded, environmental initiative.
Yeah. So,
I mean, planting 20 million trees, isn't going to save the world, but it is actually a step in the right direction. A real move in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's 20 million trees that's a lot of acres of reforestation.
Right.
And having those trees, the planting of those trees being professionally overseen is going to increase the odds of survival, and
right.
could actually really, there could be forests in 20, 30 years that were planted from this. There could be real world impacts from this.
Right.
And they've been pretty successful at raising money. I think through the first 3 or 4 days they had raised $5 million.
Okay.
And they gave themselves basically 2 months
to get to the 20 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and just about every major YouTuber is contributing. You know, I've seen everyone from like, you know, makeup tutorial YouTubers to Matt from Demolition Ranch.
Okay.
So, Jeff, just a little side note. Why are you watching makeup tutorial YouTubers?
I'm not. I'm just, you know, they come up on the trending.
I don't know anything about YouTube. I don't watch YouTube. I'm just saying.
Start searching hashtag team trees. Never know what you're going to find.
I guess.
Well, and I mean, if you go to YouTube right now, probably every top video you see is going to be related to this.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they've basically taken over all of YouTube.
Pretty wild. So that's Team Trees, hashtag Team Trees. Check it out if you're interested. And so I'm struggling to find a way to transition into our main topic, which is hunting etiquette. So let's do this. I got a package in the mail today. So here, hang on a second. Did you guys hear that?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
It's my new grunt tube, man.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Sounds
going to the cabin.
Sounds a lot better than your old one.
Yeah. So my old grunt call, I slid down a hill and packed it all full of mud, and I could never get it to sound right. I washed it all out and everything, and I could never get it to sound right again. So I finally invested in a new grunt tube, and I'm gonna be like the Pied Piper this weekend. We're going down to for listeners' sake, we're going down to our cabin this weekend for this is the weekend that we were all able to make work with our schedules to go down for a early rut bow weekend. So I'll be like the Pied Piper, man, tooting on that thing. You guys are going to hear me all over the place. Just
There's some truth to that. I'm sure you'll be doing a lot of practicing.
Yeah.
Well, a week ago, both Jake and I were hunting at the same place, about 100 yards away from each other, and I could hear Jacob rattling.
No, really?
I was impressed that it was carrying that well, but it was kind of like, you know, through a valley, and I could hear him.
And I wasn't, for just, I guess, listeners painting the picture, I wasn't really banging the horns together either. I mean, I was just gently doing a little bit of rubbing.
Some early sparring kind of.
Right, just a little bit of making just a tiny bit of noise just to do something. And next thing I know, Jeff's messaging me saying, "Are you rattling? I heard some deer fighting." I'm like, "No, don't get excited. That was me."
All right, I want to pause here briefly to talk about our sponsor, Monster Whitetail Grub. So they are a deer feed company. They've got their premium product, which is a high-protein feed, and it's got mineral mixed in, which keeps the deer coming back after the physical feed is gone. They've also got flavored corn and just straight mineral. So as the rut's winding down and we're getting geared up for either youth season or gun season here in a couple weeks, now would be a good time to start getting some feed out if you're trying to get some deer on a pattern for opening day. And you've heard us talk before. We've had really good luck with this product. It works well. They've got all kinds of different flavor additives and things that you can add to the feed, and it just works. It's a coarser feed, and so it takes the deer a little more time to get through it than just a pile of corn, and we've had really good success with it. So that being said, if you're looking for feed, if that's something you want to try out, Monster Whitetail Grub supports the podcast, and by you supporting them, they can continue to support us, and we can continue to make these episodes. So I would encourage you to check out Monster Whitetail Grub if feed and or attractants like that are something that you're wanting to try. There'll be a link in the show notes on how to get in touch with them and try some of their stuff. And with that, let's get back into the episode. So that leads us into hunting etiquette, right? What if there's a guy just over the hill going to town on his grunt tube? What do, right? No. So like I mentioned in the beginning, right, there's these scenarios in hunting and fishing. Today, these are going to kind of be hunting issues. We're gonna go over, I think, one, it's going to kind of lead into two, and this may kind of be an ongoing thing. So if you guys have like scenarios that you've run across, or things that have happened to you, send them into us, and we can talk about them. But where I think I want to start is, what do you do when you come across somebody else while hunting? So that's pretty broad, but let's start with, if you're going to a piece of public and it's got a public parking area, you pull in and there's already a vehicle there. What do you do? Do you go somewhere else, or do you go in anyway? What are your thoughts?
Well, for starters, I mean, it depends how big your piece is, I guess.
Sure.
I mean, if it's a 20-acre little spot where it's got a single parking spot and there's someone in it, I probably would, maybe, if I had another spot close, try to go somewhere else, because there's not a whole lot of room for two people in such a small piece.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's a big hundreds of acres of public, I mean, one guy can't lay claim to the whole thing.
So where's the line?
I don't know.
That's where it gets tough, right? Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, I'm going to jump in here and say there's another factor, and the other factor is the proximity of other public hunting land.
Very true. Good point.
Because if it's 20 acres and, the next public hunting is for, I don't know, 30 minutes, 45 minutes away, like, I think you're justified to go in with that guy.
Right.
If the next public hunting is across the street, you should probably go across the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and I mean,
a line.
I think it matters too with season. I mean, bow hunting versus gun season. With gun season, obviously, you don't want to be packed in as close. But I don't know.
So we agree that there's a line somewhere, and that's why you run into these scenarios, right? Is there's a lot of gray, right? There's no cut and dry, like, this is the right way. And there's a lot of variables, right? The size of in this one example, right? The size of the piece, the proximity of other hunting. I mean, you could even say maybe there's not other public hunting around, but if you have access nearby to private ground, maybe that plays into your decision. I would say it would, right? Maybe that guy that's hunting that 20-acre piece only has public hunting as a resource. He doesn't know anybody, doesn't have any family, hasn't knocked on doors, doesn't have any access to private ground, so he has to hunt that 20. Whereas you've got 6 different properties in the county or whatever that you can hunt. Maybe let that guy hunt that 20, and you go hit one of your other properties. So there's a line, right? If you have other options, and maybe that's what we try to do, is trying to boil it down to a sort of general how you should handle it, right? So if you have other options, there's other options nearby, other public options nearby, use those other options. The other way that I like to look at these is, say I'm the guy in there hunting. How does just sort of flip the scenario, right? Put yourself in the other person's shoes. You're in there hunting and somebody pulls into the parking lot. How would you hope that they handle it? Maybe you could leave a note if it's a small piece and you always have people walking in on you, ruining your hunts, maybe you leave a note on your vehicle saying, hey, I'm in the northwest corner. It would be cool if you left that area alone, and that way we don't bother each other, sort of thing. I'm coming out.
Right.
I'm not ruining your hunt. You're coming in, not walking up on me. Maybe that's a way that you can handle those kind of scenarios.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. I mean, especially because you get that, deer hunter, small game hunter conflict. And, if I'm going in somewhere to small game hunt and someone says, I'm deer hunting over here, I'd be more than willing to stay away if I knew where they were at.
Right.
But if I don't know where they're at, I'm just going to go where I want to small game hunt. And if I run into them, I run into them.
Well, so that poses the next question, right? So we've one scenario, right? You pull into the parking lot and there's already a vehicle there. You've just sort of posed another scenario of there's another vehicle there, but you're small game hunting, you're going to go in anyway, and you walk up on the guy. You're small game hunting, it's public ground, you both have equal rights to be there. Then what? How do you handle that? Do you turn around and go back the other way?
Oh, that's tough because I've had both scenarios where I've had guys come all the way up to me and we have a conversation, and I've also seen it where I see someone, I wave, they see me, they turn around and leave. I'm not sure which one is a better solution, I guess. I mean, I don't know if it's better for him to walk all the way into my tree or if it's better for him to see me at 50 to 75 yards and turn around. I guess either way, he's probably bumped any deer that were at that moment right there away.
So I guess for me, if I walked in and I'm small game hunting and I look up and see a guy in a tree stand, or like you said, he's kind of giving me the wave, like, hey dude, I'm over here. I would try to, I'm not going to turn around and go home. But I think I would try to avoid him, right? I'm going to swing out around him. If I have to go kind of past him to get access to the rest of it, I'm going to try and stay as far away from him as I can, and try and not disturb his hunt. Maybe, knowing what I know about wind direction, maybe I would take that into consideration. Just because I wouldn't want somebody to come in and disturb my hunt, I guess. That's kind of going back to flip the scenario, right? Put yourself in the other person's shoes and how would you prefer it? The nice thing, you mentioned they come in and talk to you. The nice thing about that is now you know each other's plans, as long as everybody's civil and, it's not like, what the hell are you doing? It's not that kind of confrontation, but
right.
It's like, hey man, sorry, I was going to, go up this way. Is that, where were you? Are you going to sit here all night, or are you going to move now that I kind of busted in on you, or, where are you going to go? The nice thing about that is, right, you both are on the same page then, and you can kind of go your separate ways if you so choose, or, whatever the case is. But maybe if you come up over a hill and they're right there, you're already in their 30-yard zone. Maybe you have a conversation with them then. If you see them from 100 yards away, I wouldn't then tromp over there and like, hey, what's up? Like having a whisper conversation.
Right.
But, yeah. Jeff, any thoughts on that one?
Well, I want to pose another scenario that I've ran into before. I've been small game hunting and basically walked up on someone bow hunting, like got very close to them before I noticed them up in a tree. And I'm squirrel hunting. I see a squirrel, 30 yards away, do you shoot it or do you pass up on that shot opportunity because you don't want to blow this guy's hunt up? I ended up passing on it, but
I think that's what I would do.
yeah.
You have every right to shoot it, but you can probably walk off, 300 yards, get out of his bubble, if you will, right, and find another squirrel pretty easy.
Maybe if you're a better squirrel hunter than me.
Well, I don't know. I guess that's the way I would handle it. I think I would say, "Oh, shoot, sorry," and
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. My, I guess, thought process on that would be, typically I would try to think of it as like not that one hunt is more important than the next, but who has more skin in the game kind of thing, I guess. I would typically prioritize a deer hunt as more, I don't know, you can't put values to it, but more important, quote unquote, than a squirrel hunt, or like there's just more squirrel than there are deer, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So someone hunting a deer has more invested. They have less opportunity typically than someone squirrel hunting. You get a lot more meat out of a deer. It's just a different, I don't know. So I wouldn't shoot the squirrel 30 yards from the guy.
I don't know, man. You're kind of sounding like a deer hunting elitist here. Making, that a deer hunt's more important than a squirrel hunt.
Where I was going to go with it is... I don't want to use
the word important. What I want to... let me clarify. Not more important, but there's more squirrels. Like Jason said, you could go get a squirrel somewhere else.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Well, but I think, this sort of highlights the difficulty in these scenarios, right? Like, how do you handle these scenarios? And there's not one right answer. Where I was going to go with it is, in that particular scenario, the deer hunter was there first, right? To me, there's an element of, whoever got there first sort of gets it, right? You get to hunt that area because you were there first. I feel like that in at least in my decision-making tree, that plays into it, right? There's somebody, I walked up on you. Sorry about that. I'll go find a new spot. You were here first. Because I know, like, it hasn't been small game versus deer hunting, but, I've had those scenarios where you come up over a hill and, I was going to go sit there and there's another guy, whether he's in a tree or it's gun season and, you come up over a hill and there's another orange pumpkin sitting there, and it's like, well, I'm gonna go find a new spot. They were here first, and I've had that same sort of courtesy, I guess, given to me where I was in before daylight, and it always stinks, right? Because it always seems like it's that magical, like that first hour of daylight. Things are really good, and you hear something, and you look up, and it's a guy walking towards you, but every time I've run in...
It's that guy who couldn't get the mattress off his back.
Yeah.
Coming in late.
Yeah. And so every time I've had that scenario, right, they, we kind of give each other the wave and they turn around and go back the way they came, go find a different spot. But go ahead, Jeff.
This brings me to a different, similar scenario that I've ran into before. Me and our buddy Jim were walking into the woods. We came across another hunter. This is during gun season. Might have been muzzleloader season, but we're walking into the woods. We come across another hunter, and we see him, and we see a deer. And we asked the other guy, "You going to shoot that deer?" And he said, "No, I'm buck hunting." And Jim then shot it. What do you guys think about that scenario?
Oh.
Because then
Meaning by shooting that deer, you've blown up this guy's buck hunt?
Sort of. I mean, if you feel so that you've blown up his buck hunt, but I mean,
I
now you don't.
honestly, I think that's all well and good. I mean, you asked him, "Are you interested?" I mean, the deer must have been far away, or a dumb deer.
No, it was a dumb
there.
deer. Yeah, it was a dumb deer, and I mean, it was gun season, so it was, maybe
Right.
50 yards away.
I mean,
I don't know, man. I that feels like a
tough.
D
I
move
don't
to
know.
me. I think because he was
Well,
there first, man, and he's
right.
got his priorities, and he was there hunting, and he's choosing to wait for a buck, and you happen to walk up on him. At that point, I guess for me, I'm not hunting. I've sort of taken myself out of the hunting mindset until I get out of his bubble. And what that bubble is changes, right? If it bow hunting versus gun hunting, terrain versus flat ground, there's another layer of gray area there.
Right.
But I think
I'm with you.
it doesn't surprise me that Jim
Right.
Jim did that, right?
Right.
That's
Me either. That's Jim.
That's Jim. But
But I guess knowing the characters involved, it almost makes it more of a D move because you and Jim don't have problem killing deer. So I'm sure that wasn't your only opportunity to kill a deer all year. So that makes it kind of more of a D move because I'm sure there was plenty of venison between the two of you. But that doesn't surprise me that Jim would do that, though.
I mean, yeah, Jim was in the woods to kill deer, and if that guy wasn't going to kill it, he was. And I don't know, I probably wouldn't have shot it, but I think Jim at least knew who the other guy was. He might not have been buddies with him, but he knew who he was.
well, he wasn't buddies with him after that.
Yeah, potentially not. Yeah.
But yeah, that's I don't know. I keep going back to these gray areas, right? That you've got to make a decision in the moment, and how do you handle it, right? Because you got equal rights to be there. Whether you're both deer hunters or one's a deer hunter and one's hunting rabbits or hunting squirrels or whatever. It's public ground. That's where I guess I keep going back to public ground because that's where a lot of these scenarios happen. But it could be we kind of run into these on Grandpa's farm, right? Where, they let a lot of people have access to that. And so you're trying to work around that. Are they supposed to even be there for one that, on a private ground scenario, and then just trying to everybody play nice together, I guess is
Right.
how I'll put it.
So here's a question. When you do pop over a hill and realize you're right on top of somebody, and you meet eyes and he's mad because you just came and busted his hunt, what's your escape tactic? Do you try to get out as fast as you can, bust and brush, just plow your way out of there and get away as fast as you can, or do you try and sneak out and take a while?
It would depend on what kind of mode I was in before I came up over the hill, right? If I was just, I'm not nowhere near where I was planning to go, and so I'm just kind of in travel mode, right? I'm not trying to make a bunch of noise, but I'm not really in sneak mode. Then the damage is already done, right? So I'm just going to turn around and leave at the same pace and therefore noise level as I came in. But if I was basically wanting to end up where he was hunting, and so I'm in sort of stealth mode, I don't want to go stomping in there, then I would probably leave out of there again at the same, maybe a little faster just to get out of there, right? But I'm going to try to be quiet unless I came up over the hill and like we're, eye to eye and we have a conversation. Then it's like, well, the gig is up at this point, but right. Then I'm going to get out of there. But if I come up over the hill, and I see a guy in a tree stand, I'm going to try to turn around and sneak out of there as roughly as quietly as I was sneaking in. I mean, I can't think of a specific example, but I have seen scenarios where as I'm walking in, I see a guy and, maybe I'm behind him or something and he never even knew I was there. Right. And so I just turned around and snuck back out of there. But I think, one thing we've kind of touched on here is, I keep referring to, I'm going to get out of his bubble. Right. And I think that bubble is different gun hunting versus bow hunting. And my reason for that is the bubble is a lot smaller, I would say, with bow hunting because, if a deer's 100 yards away, I mean, unless it's 100 yards away coming towards you on a trail or something, but if a deer's 100 yards away and you're not going to have an opportunity at it, what's it matter if I hunt over there because you're not, you can't shoot that deer anyway. With a gun, you can shoot 100 yards, right? And so if you can see 100, it's a field or something, if I'm 100 yards away, like let's say you've got a field and it's 100 yards across, typically, let's say, let's paint the picture, right? You've got a field, it's 100 yards across, and typically a deer is going to kind of walk along the edge of the field. And so let's say the deer on your side of the field, the odds of that deer coming across the wide open field, let's say it's a cut field, is probably pretty low, right? So in that scenario, I might set up and bow hunt on the far side of the field, assuming my wind's not blowing in and messing up the other guy's hunt, because those deer are sort of outside of your bubble, right? You don't really have a play on those deer. With a gun, I've got to go find somewhere else because you can very easily shoot those deer. So,
right. Well, here's another question though. So say we're not talking about flat ground. Say we're talking about hill country. Can you just go right over the hill, which is only maybe, 30 yards away, and hunt over there?
If you know the guy, I would say yes, right? Because we've done that, right? You're going to hunt this side. I'm going to, because
right.
Maybe the deer they don't typically come over the top, right? In that area, right? They're going to run the hillside. And so you're in a way hunting different deer.
I think that's the key though, right there. Like you got to know your terrain and know your deer.
Yeah.
Know how they move. You know what I mean? If because you can also do a real D move. If you walk up on a guy and you're like, well, I know the deer come from over here. I'm just going to go 30 yards further and I'll get them first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, if you know where the deer move, if you really have no idea, then you're not doing anything intentional. But like if you know the deer bed over here, they work this face, they come through this, low spot and come across, I'm just going to go to the other side and catch them before they get to the, the pass where they come through. Then that's kind of a D move. But if it's separate, there's deer that live in this hollow, facing west, so to speak. And there's deer that live in this hollow that's over the east side of this ridge. And they're separate things. They don't typically come up and over. They go out the front or whatever. Then at that point, you're hunting almost totally different deer.
Yeah, or even if they're the same deer, like let's say they're, it's the same group of deer, but they bounce from one hollow to the other. You're only going to have a chance in one spot or the other, sort of thing, right? Like it's a spot. I guess this scenario, this picture we're painting it's a high peak or something, and not a peak because a lot of times I guess a deer would sort of maybe work around a peak, but it's a ridge or something, and it's real thick on top, and the deer don't cross over, right? There's a, maybe it's not a good place to hunt as I'm painting this scenario, but yeah, I forget where I was going with that, but
well, in that scenario, say it's a thick top. I mean, that'd be a good gun hunting situation, though. You know what I mean? If it's thick at the top and you want to sit on one side of the thicket looking down into a hollow, it's okay to only be 20, 30 yards away if you're back to back and there's a thicket between you and you're shooting down into another hollow where you each have 100-yard shots, but the deer are never going to cross. You know what I mean? You're in that situation.
Like you're just over the ridge from each other.
Right. But
Right.
you're both hunting totally different acreage, so to speak.
There's been scenarios where, that's happened unintentionally, right? Like you're set up and it gets daylight or something, and not even like first light, but, at some point, a couple hours in, something happens, the light changes, you shift over or something, and all of a sudden you see another guy. I can't think of a specific example, but I know there's been scenarios where it was like, boy, that really looks like orange over there, and you've been sitting there for 2 hours and unknowingly hunting, 80 yards from somebody else.
Yeah. I've had that happen where the woods woke up and I was kind of looking around, doing whatever. And like you said, the shadows move, and all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, there's a guy over there. I'm glad a deer didn't come by because I had no idea he was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had people, the sun comes up and, hunted for a few hours with the sun up, and then all of a sudden hear a gunshot, that sounds like it's right next to me.
Yeah.
And someone's been hunting over the ridgetop, not far at all from me all day, but we both came in the dark and
from different directions, and
right, never heard each other. I came up this hollow, he came up that hollow, or he came over the ridge.
Yep.
And that'll really scare you.
Yeah.
Because you're all alone in the woods, you feel like you can see 1,000 yards, and then all of a sudden there's a gunshot that, sounds like your gun went off.
Yeah. Though that's you better hope you brought TP with you up there, because you got to clean your drawers out.
Yeah.
But so a lot of scenarios. I don't know if we made any progress in sort of well, I think we did, right? Sort of laying some of these scenarios out, and just I guess the main takeaway I would sort of suggest with this is try to keep in mind that people aren't, well, you see a lot of stuff on the internet, right? So maybe there are some scenarios where somebody's intentionally trying to be malicious, but in the vast majority of scenarios, we're all just out there trying to hunt, have a good time, enjoy the resource. And so keep that in mind, I guess. I try to keep that in mind when I have these scenarios. In the moment, it can be frustrating, right? A guy walked up on you. Oh, my hunt's ruined. But, he didn't know. Hopefully if you're the guy that walks up on somebody, think about if the roles were reversed, and, maybe you just kind of ease back out of there and go find a different spot, and just be nice to each other out there. So you guys have any other scenarios or anything you want to add to this conversation before we shut it down? Any, I guess, closing thoughts?
My closing thought will be, I just feel like in my situation, I just like to try and think of, like, to use like a scientific term, I guess, or a medical term, I don't know, like the opportunity cost. And what that means is, like, the three of us, we get to do our fair share of hunting. Hence why we're doing a podcast, because we love to hunt and our wives allow us to pursue our passion. But you don't know what the next guy can or can't do. So it might be his only time to be in the woods all year. So I like to try and think about, like, I've got deer already. So if I've already gotten a deer and I roll up on a parking lot with a truck in it, I might be less likely to go beating in versus, there's some guys who can only hunt, I don't know, whatever. They get 3 weekends a year because of whatever it is. So it's like, I don't know. I just try to think about the other guy the best I can. Like you said, it is frustrating. If you scout, you go in the dark, you do it all right, and then some guy comes beating through the brush an hour into light. But in the same respect, you don't know. Maybe that guy had something come up at home that delayed him, and that's why, it's hard to say. So I just try to give everybody the benefit of a doubt. You know what I mean? And just kind of like take it for what it is. It's public land. They have every right to be there. If it's private land in that situation, maybe there's a conversation to be had because the other person, or should at least have a contact number for them. That's kind of how we handle it. We try to have the phone number for anyone that hunts, like out of Grandpa's, the best we can, just to be like, hey, are you going to be out? If so, where are you going to be? Just to try to avoid that kind of stuff. But I just try to think of it that way. Like, you don't know everyone else's story, and it's just hard to, it's going to be frustrating when it happens. But then, like, the more you think about it, like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think opportunity cost is a financial term.
Well, there you go. Financial.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's also like an ecological term, though, too. I don't really know where it comes from.
Because I knew it from, like, ecology and if you do something, what the outcome is. But anyhow, moving on. Not important to this conversation.
Yeah. What kind of my closing thought was, a good rule of thumb when you run into these situations is kind of just try to find the scenario that doesn't ruin the other person's hunt and doesn't ruin your hunt. Like, try to kind of split,
some kind of common ground in the middle.
Yeah. Find, even if you're not having a conversation with that person, you don't need to ruin your hunt because you ran into someone else. You don't need to necessarily vacate the woods, but try to think about that person and think about yourself. I don't know, because I'm more of one of the people that if I ran into someone, I would want to leave the woods because I'm ruining, his hunt.
Yeah.
But I kind of have to remind myself, like, well, I have just as much right to be here as he does, even though, maybe even he was here first, but I still have, a right to be hunting here because it's public ground or it's private ground that I have permission on. So, let's try to find, come up with a solution that doesn't ruin my day and doesn't ruin his.
Right. Doesn't keep you out of the woods, but also doesn't completely blow up the other guy's hunt.
Right.
Yeah. So, like we said, let us know if you guys like these kind of conversations, where we kind of play around with these etiquette type scenarios. Send us some scenarios that you've had, if you want. We can talk about those on an episode. Maybe we make this an ongoing segment or something. But I guess we'll leave it with like Jeff said, try to find a common ground, a common solution where everybody gets to hunt, and hopefully you're not completely ruining. Don't intentionally ruin somebody else's hunt. Don't be that guy. But hopefully that there's usually a way where you can back out and swing around a different way, or whatever the scenario is if you walk up on somebody. But there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of these different scenarios. This is just one, right? We could talk about how close can you fish to somebody else, right? There's things there. You're in a hot spot. Can you come over and fish near somebody else, or There's tons of these scenarios, right? So let us know if you like this, and good luck out there. Stay safe, and thanks for listening. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's episode. Like I said, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully it gets you thinking about some scenarios, and maybe you can put yourself in the other person's shoes when you're out there, and you run into these sort of hunting etiquette conundrums, if you will. And hopefully we can all just kind of play nice. Like I said, we're all out there trying to use the resource and get a deer, or a squirrel, or rabbits, or whatever you're out there doing. And hopefully we can all get along. Like I said, maybe we'll do some more of these if you guys like this kind of stuff, and we'd love to hear some of your hunting etiquette scenarios that you've run into, and maybe we can talk about those on the show. Maybe other people can learn from them, or there'll be some takeaways from that. So if you want to share those with us, that would be great. Another thing I'll remind you of is, as we're getting into holiday shopping season, we do have our shirts and sweatshirts and decals on our website if that's something that you would be interested in. So you can go to ohiohuntsman.com/apparel, and that basically gets you into all of our different apparel options. So we've got men's stuff, we've got women's stuff, we've got youth stuff, and like I said, our decals. So check that stuff out. That's another way that you can help support the podcast and help us continue to make these. And with that, I think that's everything I wanted to touch on. So hopefully you guys have been spending some time in the woods. Hopefully you had a good rut. And now it's time to get geared up for gun season. So with that, I want to thank everybody for listening, and stay safe out there.